Hey all, this is Gasagma Keperu for New World Dimensions, and I'm on my way home on the subway, and it's pretty empty, by the way. That's very unusual. You take a look here, see there's not many people here, so big, there's one guy over there. Anyway, so I'm going to title this video, The Deceivers. So who am I referring to? I'm referring to those ministers and preachers who are out there proselytizing about the word. Yes, I'm calling you out. What we need to understand is that the basis of what some of these people, not all, have built their ministries on is nothing more than capitalism, financial gain. And they do this by picking on the disenfranchised, the down and out, specifically African Americans, Native Americans, Mexican Americans. So they target these groups specifically, and they call them sinners, they call them heathens, they call their religion, their way of life as satanic, as they're going to hell because they're not saved. And they use all of these methods to try and put them into type of a guilt trip to make them seem like there's something wrong with them in order to get them to subscribe to their doctrines and to contribute monetarily to their ministries. And if you look at the majority, especially these TV evangelists, of the amount of money that they're making a year, which is in the range of $100 million, $200 million, and some of them have private jets. Think about it. Some of the people in their congregation make no more than $25,000, $30,000 a year. So if you're making that little bit of money, given to somebody who's making $200 million a year with their own G5, there's something wrong with that. I mean, really, seriously, think about that. To me, it is a crime, but some of the responsibility has to be shared by those in the congregation who are given the money. So, let me go back to the subject at hand. So, what they specifically do is target these groups, give them the guilt trip, talk about how they're going to go to hell if they don't seek out Jesus, or if they don't seek out their Savior, if they don't become born again, if they don't become saved. And this guilt trip sometimes has a very powerful effect of making them start to feel guilty and feel inadequate about themselves. So they start to run to Christianity, start to run to Catholicism, they start to convert to Islam, But what you have to think about, and I want you to really, really think about this, because we're taught not to think, especially religion today. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to become analytical in your thought process. The ancient African shaman, ancient African culture was built on culture, meaning that there were no laws. You didn't have a book of laws that if you broke them, you would go to jail. Instead, we had cultures that were ingrained in people so that those philosophies, those ideas were embedded in you from a very early age. So there was no need for external laws to keep you in check, because you were already brought up with an idea, a philosophy of what to do right. So you wouldn't violate laws that were put in place to keep the harmony together. Whereas we see in Western culture, you have to have laws about, the law says this, the law says that, and if you break the law, you can seek justice by taking someone to court. We didn't have all of that specifically in ancient culture because, again, we had culture that you were brought up with that was a part of every aspect of your life. You see, this whole thing about external enforcement to get you to do right is so primitive and so naive. And the African ancestors were so brilliant in the way they constructed our society, was that everything operated from a holistic perspective, and everything was in harmony. That there was no need to have police, policemen walking or policewomen walking the beat. You didn't need all of that. Everything was just kept in check by society, which put pressure on the individual to act in accordance with the will of the good of the whole. No external laws, no external law enforcement. You just didn't have those in African cultures or ancient cultures. And that shows you a sign of how sophisticated we were back then. But yet, if you look at the deceivers today, the ministers, the preachers, who always want to look back and point the finger and talk about how those cultures were, they were so primitive, so evil, so satanic in the way they worship, so pagan. And again, that's just a device for them to use to get you to subscribe to their doctrine, to support them monetarily. But when, in fact, we had an advanced moral civilization built upon ethics, not upon external enforcement of laws. Think about that. This is Kasak Ma'akeparu from New World Dimensions. That's all for now.